Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ben Huang, an undergraduate of Media and Culture at Lancaster University in the UK. Today, in this video, we're going to look at my summary of the book Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. As you can see, this is the book over here. And today I just thought I can do something a bit different than what I usually do. So here you can see in my summary, I usually separate my summaries into 6 parts. And the first part is the book in 3 sentences, how I discovered it, who should read it, how the book changed me, my top 3 quotes, and last but not least, my summary and notes, which is essentially my thoughts and opinions section. So how would I like to describe this book in 3 sentences? First of all, I feel like it is incredibly simple and easy to read, and simple as in primary school level simple. And second of all, it is philosophical, profound, and yet it is all common sense. And thirdly, it is a book that everyone in the world should read today. And about the story, how I discovered this book, Who Moved My Cheese, first and foremost, it was brought up by my girlfriend in the video call we had back in 2020 when we were chatting about books, or what she had thought bought again at the bookstore. She sincerely recommended me this book and said as if she is begging me to buy it. And more than just having something to talk about between us, but she seriously thought that I would like this book and might even find it useful, which I did. However, it took me long enough before I really bought the book and read it. A lot was due to my schoolwork and procrastination. And thanks to the third day of UPW, when Tony Robbins mentioned the book, I thought to myself, even this guy on my screen is recommending this book, then it must definitely be a good book. And that was when I finally got the leverage to search the book on the internet. And after searching on bookstore websites here and there for a couple of days, I bought the book from Book Depository at a fairly cheap price. And who I think should read this book, well, frankly and bluntly speaking, I think this book is what everyone in the world should read, despite looking like one of these books that only appear in the children's section at the bookstore. However, that is what I believe the exact point of the book is, which makes it so easy to read and understand. And the way the book is written in a story format keeps the readers intrigued and will want to keep on reading to see what happens next, so that they could quickly catch the moral of the story. Small but profound, simple yet deep is how I like to describe this book, which is no more than 100 pages and takes less than 1.5 hours to read. I'll explain my thoughts on this book even further in the summary and notes section, including the reasons why people should read it, or even better, take notes like I did about it, such that they could remember it better. And hopefully, by reading my summary and notes, which is essentially my thoughts and opinions, thoughts and feelings about the book, as I just said before, people will get what I mean. And about how the book changed me. Finish reading the book reminds me of the lessons that Tony taught us at UPW, especially about change, as what Tony had said was quite familiar to what the book was saying. Therefore, after such a long time hanging around with Tony, the context of the book does not really come as a surprise to me. However, that doesn't mean it hasn't made an impact on me. Again, as I mentioned earlier, due to the simplicity of the book, it made me come up with a more flexible, simple, as well as a more positive view on change. And actually, changing is not as bad as most of us thought it would be. And here are my top 3 quotes of the book. First one, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And second, all beliefs do not lead you to the new cheese. And thirdly, noticing small changes early helps you adapt to bigger changes that are to come. And before I go any further introducing you guys to the summary and my thoughts and feelings about the book, I'd like to let you guys know briefly about the story plot, meaning what is happening inside the book. So the story plot basically goes like this. There are 4 characters in the story whose names are Sniff, Scurry, Hem, and Haw. The first 2 are mice, and the last 2 are tiny people, and they all lived in the maze where the story takes place. A typical day for them would be waking up, putting on their sports trainers, and running into the maze to collect as much cheese as possible. And that changed one day when the 4 characters found a cheese that was so gigantic that it was so hard to imagine that it would be finished one day. Hence, Hem and Haw moved their house straight next to the cheese so that they would no longer need to run that much to collect the cheese. And during which Sniff and Scurry continued to do the same, ran from their houses to the cheese, and always had their running shoes tied to their necks, noticed the small changes in the cheese, enjoyed the cheese, and ran back home. And this continued until one day when the cheese was gone. The 2 mice quickly moved on to find another cheese, while the 2 little people felt utterly depressed, in shock and disbelief. And the rest of the book goes on telling the story of how Haw eventually decided to move on to another cheese, and what and how he felt during his journey, leaving his pal Hem behind. And about the 4 characters of the book, each of them represents the types of people on their attitudes towards goals and change, as well as different parts of our personality. So here we look at Sniff, who has a fabulous sense and smell, is able to sniff its way out of the maze, and that guides him to the cheese. And Scurry, who doesn't have such a good nose, but who is fast and nimble, was able to quickly find his cheese due to his marvelous speed. And for Hem and Haw, different from its trial and error type, the little people aren't as fast or as skilled as mice in these areas, but were able to use their superior intelligence and past experiences to work their way through the maze. And the main idea of the story differs from person to person, and every individual has their own unique way of interpreting a story and applying the lessons they learn in the story into their daily lives. And personally, in my opinion, what this story reminds me is the art of looking at change as something that is positive and rewarding. Nevertheless, I also think that change is nothing terrible and terrifying as most of us think. All of us have our own cheese that we're constantly desiring, chasing, and aiming for, which may be a metaphor for any of our goals, for example, in relationships, finance, income, material goods, or maybe some of us at the moment are actually enjoying the cheese, enjoying the pleasant taste of it. And of course, we all enjoy the great taste of the cheese when we get it. I mean, who doesn't like cheese, right? However, when our cheese is moved, like Hem and Haw, our little brains go mad. We are shocked, we panic, and get frustrated. Who moved my cheese? We will yell on top of our lungs. It's not fair. Unlike the mice, our little human brains are far more civilized, intelligent, and educated. Albeit simultaneously, our sensitivity and flexibility is nowhere near Sniff and Scurry when we easily take things for granted, as we're not paying attention to either the cheese and or its surroundings. And that being said, Hem and Haw wouldn't have been so shocked if they observed the cheese every day. For example, its shape, size, and taste, so that they would have known that the size of cheese was obviously decreasing day by day. Thus, they would have been mentally prepared for the day when the cheese they found finished, which then they will have to move on and find another one. Further, even if it's the case that they hadn't known this, a much more flexible mindset would be, okay, now the cheese is finished, let's move on and find another one. Compared to, I don't think I would like my cheese, it's not what I'm used to, I want my old cheese back, and I'm not going to change until I get what I want. As said by him, when Haw tried to convince him to move on. Now, here we can see that instead of the first mindset, the second one is often our go-to mindset when we see our cheese is missing. If you don't change, life changes you. And trust me, that wouldn't be fun, Tony Robbins says in his UPW course. Nothing is here forever, and nothing is gone forever. We don't own our cheese, neither does our cheese own us. Even so, it happens to be that the cheese just magically disappeared by itself. Sitting there whining and complaining is not going to change anything, nor does it give the cheese back to you. Whatever is said, made, and done couldn't be reversed, and throwing a reverse Uno card on life will not work. I have no other explanations for this, but to put simply, it is much better to get moving and start to find a new cheese, rather than sitting there and do nothing, right? Furthermore, I also think that another reason why Hem and Ha were feeling so shocked when they didn't see their cheese at cheese station C is that, in contrast to the two mice, the two little people, they relied on the cheese. That's to say, these two actually moved there, hung their shoes up, and built a social life around it. And it's not to say that they can't do that, but it is as if their life depended on it. And that's what caused the breakdown when the cheese was gone. And looking at Hem and Ha, it may be funny, but in reality, it's just like us, isn't it? We may be looking for a dream job for a significant, horrible amount of time. And when we are finally employed, we've happily moved into a neighborhood around our workplace. Then when the office closed down for some reason, such like COVID, we get petrified. We rely on our job so much that it soon became natural for us to not think about the future and what may possibly happen. In other words, not taking a step ahead of life. And this may be one of the main reasons why numerous businesses have failed during the major wave of COVID across the globe in 2021, which is all due to people's lack of preparedness and a mind that easily took their situation for granted, despite being completely aware of what happened to other businesses locally and internationally. In addition, when we rely or take the current situation we are in for granted, we forget to plan ahead and brace ourselves for what could possibly happen in the future, which is essentially not being prepared. Talking about the lack of preparedness, it is also mentioned in the book that during the time when the mice were taking the same fast food to the cheese every day and hung their running shoes on their neck so that they were always prepared to move whenever they needed, the two little people, on the other hand, randomly threw their shoes somewhere that took quite some time to find when it was time for them to move. And if we were excellent time managers, we wouldn't want to waste our time finding things, would we? We would rather use the time for finding the new cheese or explore the new routes in the maze that lead us to the new cheese instead, right? Overall, it could then be said that finding the cheese we want may be enticing. However, oftentimes we become careless, rely on the cheese as if it's never going to be finished, and stop preparing for future possibilities. Then, when the cheese is gone, certainly we're going to feel shocked, mad, and paralyzed. And to conclude this idea, Tony Robbins says it the best. Winners anticipate, losers react. Now, when it is finally a time that we have to make a change, some of us either become angry and rage like him, while others are shocked and disbelief, slap ourselves in the face and say, no, it's just a dream, it's not happening, like Ha, and are unwilling to face what has happened. Likewise, we may also walk to the same place where the cheese had been and notice that it's not there. It may certainly be somewhere, or maybe even just around the corner over there, we would shout. But of course, we wouldn't find anything. However, that does not stop us from going over there and check if it really is not there for several days before we stop and surrender ourselves to reality. We're focusing on the act of change. Specifically, the mice just simply ran off and started finding another one before they found a much more supplied cheese station, whereas Ham and Haw stayed there and just hoped that the cheese would just by itself make its own way back to where it was, especially Ham. Really, it's not that much big of a deal to take the time to feel surprised at what's happened, particularly at the things that you're not in control of. Nevertheless, it would be a problem if one doesn't adapt to change and take massive action, which in the world we're living today, this may be one of the leading problems we have in society, namely suicide, depression, alcohol or drugs possession, and addiction, partly due to the fact that people cannot accept the change that has happened to them and are having a hard time adapting to it. We soon become paralyzed by fear, anger, anxiety, and fall into a never-ending loop of limiting beliefs. Yet, as Tony says, we cannot control what is happening outside us, but we can control our emotions. It doesn't have to be just emotions, but it could also be our attitude and mindset, such that we could break through our fears, limiting beliefs, and the thoughts that hold us back. And that being said, with courage, in the story, Hall was able to break through his fears and disrupt his limiting pattern and come up with a new set of encouraging and empowering beliefs, which is what I'm impressed about. It may be difficult to change, but again, as Tony says this over and over again, if you don't change, life changes you. And we just have to annihilate the pattern that restrains us from achieving what we want. Because the truth is, we can do what we want, and we can achieve what we want when we shut these little voices in the back of our head up and put all of our effort into what we're doing. As shown in the book, when Hall moved through the maze, there were times he felt small, fearful, and uncertain. Oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? He thinks. But looking back at where he was in a cheeseless situation, and now even not being a cheeseful place yet, he was proud of the little successes he has made on the way. While he repeatedly imagined himself in a place full of cheese that he could enjoy so much that he would never have to find another cheese station again and dance in the pile of cheese he is going to be in. That makes him feel excited and motivated. And as we saw at the end of the story, that is what led him to his goal. Fear may still be useful in ways that remind us about the dangers lurking ahead of us. However, we should learn to dance with fear, disappoint our disappointments, and not letting fear stop us from getting what we want. And to conclude all of this, it could thus be said that one of the key elements that led Hall to success, or in this case, finding plenty of cheese in cheese station N, is his not negative, but positive beliefs. Not to mention his empowering, optimistic, resourceful attitude and a never ever give up mindset, while not overcomplicating them. I believe without these, he wouldn't have made his way to cheese station N. Now, time travel back to the time in cheese station C. Nothing would have happened if Hall didn't take massive action. Action is the bridge between our mind and reality, our results, and even possibly our dreams. Without taking massive action, although a lot may be going on inside our head, but in real life, no change has been made, and we're still in the same place as before. Therefore, you just have to keep in mind that positive beliefs and massive action, and do not allow these negative beliefs to paralyze us. In the end, when Hall finally made it to cheese station N, he united with his friends Snip and Scurry with their shoes still tied around their necks and their bellies bloated. Snip and Scurry, despite enjoying a sea of cheese, by having their shoes still tied together and hanging them on their neck, shows that they're still ready for change, regardless of how much better they are now compared to before. Also, after arriving there, Hall did not forget the lessons he learned at Cheese Station C and from the journey he had in the maze. He still goes out every day in the maze, just like Sid and Scurry do, to explore new paths that may possibly lead to other cheese stations, and to also familiarize himself with the maze. Clearly, we can see that Hall this time did not take his place for granted, and is always prepared for change. All in all, a cheese-full situation is always better than a place without cheese. No matter the size or shape of the cheese, it is only through massive action that individuals will find the cheese they desire, especially if they don't overcomplicate things or be overwhelmed by their limiting beliefs. And that the main point is, without change, nothing is possible. We can choose to change or we don't get anything. It's that simple, everyone. You change, you get the new cheese. You don't change, you get nothing. And here you can see is what Paul proudly wrote on the walls of Cheese Station, and regarding the lessons he learned throughout his way in the maze, and it will certainly be useful. So here you can see change happens. They keep moving the cheese. Anticipate change. Get ready for the cheese to move by looking at what Hall wrote on the walls of Cheese Station, and you can think to yourself about all these questions. You can ask yourself these questions like, change happens, they keep moving the cheese. Okay, is there anything, any major big thing that's happened to you that forces you to make a change? And anticipate change. Get ready for the cheese to move. Do you anticipate change, or have you always anticipated change? And if you didn't, what was your reaction? And monitor change. Smell the cheese often so you know when it's getting old. Well, you certainly don't smell the cheese, but do you monitor change? Are you aware of what's happening around you, and you're constantly monitoring it and noticing the changes that's happening to it, and you anticipate change and you expect change to happen? And adapt to change quickly. The quicker you let go of the old cheese, the sooner you can enjoy the new cheese. Very true. Do you adapt to either a new environment, a new person, a new goal, or do you stay with the old one and you find yourself having a hard time letting it go? Have you ever had that experience before? And if it is, what can you do about it? Change. Move with the cheese and enjoy change. Savor the adventure and enjoy the taste of new cheese. And here you can think to yourself, you can ask yourself questions like, okay, so before, when I didn't used to notice change, anticipate change, monitor change, or adapt to change quickly, what can I do next time? And if really, let's say now we're currently experiencing some changes in our life, what can we do to make that experience joyful or more enjoyable for us? As enjoying the cheese is always better than not enjoying the cheese, right? And lastly, be ready to change quickly and enjoy it again and again. They keep moving the cheese. Yes, life happens, and there's always something there's always this force that keeps on moving the cheese in our life, just like what him and Ha, Sniff and Scurry experienced. It was there. It was really good. Life was good. Him and Ha built a social life around it, just like many of us do for either a job or a person. We moved our house there so it's easier to work. We moved in with the person so that we can spend more time together. But when something happens suddenly, what is our reaction to it? And here I think whatever change happens, let's say specifically, what is our reaction to it? And when change happens, I think this is when all of these can come into great use. And this is what I think we can always keep in mind of. And here, as well as the notes that him and Ha made on cheese they can see and homemade on the walls of the maze. And here, first one, having cheese makes you happy. The more important cheese is to you, the more you want to hold on to it. If you don't change, you can become extinct. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Smell the cheese often so you know when it's getting old. A movement in a new direction helps you find cheese. And when you stop being afraid, you feel good. And imagining yourself enjoy the new cheese leads you to it. And the quicker you let go of the old cheese, the sooner you'll find the new cheese. And it is safer to search in the maze than remain in a cheeseless situation. And old beliefs do not lead you to new cheese. And when you see that you can find and enjoy new cheese, you change course. And noticing small changes early helps you adapt to bigger changes that are to come. And lastly, move with the cheese and enjoy it. And that's for today, guys, for my book summary of the book, Who Moved My Cheese? I hope you guys found this helpful. And if you liked this video, please give it a like, comment, share this video, turn on notifications, and subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.